Hello and welcome to an emergency episode of 4 Wales See Wales with me, Mel Owen.
Me, Robin Morgan.
And I'm tired.
William Hayward, have you been to sleep yet?
I haven't been to sleep yet. We are recording this at 6 a.m. I got to the Caerphilly count at 9:30 last night. I wrote the newsletter there. I sent it. I've driven back. I've tried to finish my Guardian article, but I've jumped on this pod instead because it's more fun.
I have read your article this morning. As I was waking up to check the news, the first thing that came through was your newsletter. And, well, I mean, what a turn of events.
Have we told people that we're doing this remotely yet? Audio listeners?
I think it's obvious to our listeners. Let's not patronise them. I'll be honest, listeners, we're not in the Heyman studios. We're at home. Yeah, but it's emergency pod, isn't it?
Imagine if we're actually doing it remotely, but from the one house that we all live in.
We're all in different rooms.
We're all in separate rooms.
Yes.
I'm so pleased. I woke up weirdly, naturally at 5:15 a.m. I think my body knew there was a Will Hayward email in my inbox. Yeah. I need to get through this. I need to get through the Martin Lewis one from Tuesday. I need to get through my Groupon emails. But honestly, flabbergasted. So shocked and thrilled that I can wake up and 45 minutes later talk to you lovely people about it.
Exactly. Now, what's the goss like? What was the goss like there? What was the vibe?
So when I arrived, the overwhelm, I got there at the same time as the Reform lot got there, dressed to the nines.
Did you walk together, I'm sure? Did you all hold hands?
That they carried me in. So the mood initially was, I think Reform have probably got this. And this is before any of the ballots came in. And then pretty quickly, a few people from Plaid started coming over to me and going, these are looking really good. These are looking really good.
And can I ask, what are they looking at? Are they looking at physical stacks of votes that people are counting? Is that what the vibe is?
Yeah, so I'll paint you a picture. So you go into Caerphilly Leisure Centre. There's a bit for the press where all the unwashed hacks are. And then you've got this kind of fenced-off area in the middle, which you can walk around the outside of. And in the middle of it, there are people counting ballots. There are then representatives from all of the parties surrounding it. And they're basically monitoring it to check on behalf of their parties. And they therefore get quite a good sense of which way things are going and what good local representatives will do is they'll know, well, actually that's coming from that ward, that area is strongly Plaid or more likely to be Reform, and they'll get a bit of a feel for it. So sometimes you get those indications. I think for me, Lindsay Whittle, who is the new Senedd member for Caerphilly, for Plaid, I spoke to him really early on and he was very, very excited, but he is always excited. So I'll be honest with you, I kind of discounted it.
Well, 14 times in fair play, like the guy's got hope and dreams, he puts Martin Luther King to shame.
So many people have said that, Mel. He said that in his speech as well. He called out Dr. King in his speech.
Yeah.
He has the tenacity of a boy in an 80s movie who does not take no from a girl. He's still with the boombox over Caerphilly, like, say anything, please vote for me.
When he gave his speech, so the person who wins gives the first speech after the votes are announced. And he actually started his speech with, "Ladies and gentlemen, you will forgive me. I'm not used to speaking first at these election counts." And given this was the 14th time he's lost, that was like fair play.
It was like a groom's speech who's been jilted 13 times and he's never got to say a speech on the day. Like, finally, I can say thank you for coming.
Bless. Also, like me and Robin know the importance of like your first line being a winner in a new room, in a challenging room.
It's a killer room.
Your first line to kill. Yeah.
Killer line.
Fair play. Whittle did it. He did it.
Yeah. Can I add one thing to the agenda?
Yeah.
I want to talk about the 79 people who voted for UKIP's Roger Quilliam. I'm absolutely obsessed with them. And I'd like to talk about every single one of those 79 people.
Yeah,
won't take long. So the results were, in first place, it was Plaid Cymru's Lindsay Whittle with 47.5% of the vote. Then it was Reform's Clear Powell with 36% of votes, so a third of people voting Reform, just over a third. It was then Labour's Richard Tunnicliffe with 11.1% of the vote. We then had the Conservatives with 2% of the vote. Lib Dems 1.5, Greens 1.5, Glad 0.3%, and then the aforementioned Roger Quilliam from UKIP with 0.2% of the vote. As I drove into Caerphilly, there was a huge electronic billboard which said "Vote Labour to stop reform," and that messaging it rings so hollow. And 11%, for context, if this was to transpire in the Senedd election in May, now obviously it wouldn't, it's more proportional, people vote differently, but if that was the case, Labour would have no seats.
Zero seats?
It depends on the mass, but that 11%, is that 11, 12%?
Yeah.
They could easily be in single figures, easily, with this.
That's insane.
It is. And what it also means is, I think there's a few things to take from this. I mean, I think some people really liked what Plaid was saying, but I think what it also did was it solidified that idea that people were. I think a lot of people were voting to stop reform, not necessarily just for Plaid. I'm not saying Plaid didn't do really well, but people were really concerned about reform, and people turned out for that. And what I think is quite interesting is that Reform went all in on immigration. Immigration is terrible, and it's clear that most people in Caerphilly are much more scared of Reform than they are of immigrants.
Yeah. But it is a huge loss for Labour. And when I was browsing kind of like the headlines this morning, especially the more like UK-focused news outlets, really did not mention Reform that much, but mentioned what a huge loss this was for Labour. And I almost think I forgot that, because we went into this knowing they weren't going to win. Like, for me, there was an element of like, no shit, Sherlock. But that's because here on the ground, for me, it was a given Labour weren't going to win. I don't think I expected them to do as badly as they did. But it is interesting how here in Wales they have been written off so much compared to, I think, maybe on the UK landscape.
That swing is like historic, isn't it? That as you say, 40% down to 11 is absolutely crazy. But they knew that was happening. As we say, we sort of people who have been following this stuff for X amount of time, we were aware of it. Like it sounds like from the things I've read, Will, that obviously Keir Starmer wasn't there. Richard Tunnicliffe sort of turned up quite late. Like they knew what was happening, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact... Well, Keir Starmer wasn't there, but Keir Starmer hasn't been in Caerphilly at all.
Yeah.
Nigel Farage's in Caerphilly multiple times. Buggered off pretty quick when he knew they weren't going to win, but we'll come to that. Darren Miller went to Caerphilly. They have
a prayer breakfast on or something. But the croissants being handed out there.
There's a really good bacon bap that he loves in Caerphilly. he wanted to cook some eggy bread for people.
So basically, there's two reasons why Keir Starmer didn't go there. It's one of these two things. Either he was seen as so electorally toxic it was not worth him going, or he doesn't really prioritise it. Either way, that is a terrible, terrible, terrible state of affairs. And
it's a lose-lose. I was just, as you said that, it made me actually think. So I was like, if the UK Labour were taking Caerphilly seriously, they'd have sent Keir Starmer. But like you say, actually, would that be the kiss of death?
Do you know what? There's a bit of me which thinks that actually UK Labour see the failings in Wales as Welsh Labour's fault. And what they don't want to do, I think, and I don't think this is right, but I don't think this is the right thing for them to think, but I think this is what they do think. They think, well, if we go there and then they lose, that's on us. Like, that makes it look like we've done something wrong, when actually it's Welsh Labour doing really bad. I genuinely think Labour... It's not about just learning a small lesson from this. It's not about changing messaging. They need to accept that they are not going to be the largest party when we get to May. What they need to do is now think, right, how are we still going to exist as any kind of political force after that point? And I think what they need to do is decide a specific targeted group that they are going to relentlessly go after, a group which might be able to get them 15 seats in the Senedd. And go after that relentlessly. You are not going to be the largest party. If you try and appeal to everyone, you are going to appeal to no one, and they could end up just completely wiped out.
Isn't that? Do they know how to do that though? Do they know how to? Because that's a targeted campaign that Plaid, I'm sure, are used to. The Greens, I'm sure, are used to. The Reform are going to be sort of like, I know they're going to be. Their Caerphilly plan was really to target that area, throw a lot of money at that area. I don't think Welsh Labour know how to target areas. They've always just been, we are Welsh Labour, vote for us. We are the status quo, vote for us. I don't think they know how to do that.
You know, in Blackadder, the character Flash Hut, when he comes in and he's like, "It's me." I feel like that's actually been like Welsh Labour's policy for like years. I did a few BBC stints on the sofa overnight. I think that they were desperate.
Graham Norton.
Yeah.
Hey, what a booking, man.
Traitors and blokes.
Julie Roberts, Will Hayward plugging his book.
There is nothing Will Hayward won't plug.
Yeah.
I had Labour people, I was hearing them say, right, we need to change our messaging. We need to change the direction on this. And I was like, you don't need to change your attack lines. You don't need to do anything. Do you know what you've got, which no other party has in the whole of England or Wales? Power. You control the Welsh government. You control the UK government. You are never going to be more powerful than you are right now. Your best case scenario at any point in the future is this much power. So why don't you crack on? Why don't you do something demonstrable to help people in Wales? Because that is the best possible advert you can do for your party. But let's just change our attack lines on Plaid a bit. We need to talk about the fact Plaid like independence. That's what's going to win it for us. Let's talk about the fact Welsh independence isn't good, rather than something that we can do to actually benefit. It really pissed me off. I'm quite tired.
Do you know who that what you just said reminded me of? It reminded me of you a year ago saying exactly the same thing. That you've been saying this about them. You're in power. Do something about it. You have over a year before the elections. You were saying, do something about it.
And here we are.
But I would say, like, it's been lost. Do you know what I mean? Like, May has been lost for them. Like, what a kick in the teeth this is, and this doesn't help them either, because I don't think there is the panic of people going, oh my gosh, look, they've lost. If we really need to get behind Labour in May, actually, like, they've been written off, and they've got nobody to blame but themselves.
I wasn't surprised that Starmer didn't turn up there, as you say, sort of electorally sort of toxic, I suppose, which is such a kick in the teeth for them, because there's so many good tweets that they could have done about Caerphilly. They could have done that pun so many times, and it's a real shame they missed out on that.
Will has loved their socials lately, haven't you?
It's been pretty cool, isn't it?
I feel bad because like Mel is quite a bit younger than me and Robin, and has pointed out that maybe I'm a bit of a granddad mocking their stuff. But good God, what is it?
You know the one yesterday with the paint of like the rose and everything that was like
MS Paint, wasn't it?
Yeah, like on the one hand, that is a popular trend, right? I understand that is a popular trend, it's stolen from like another advertising campaign that was done really, really well. But like, on the other hand, not today. Do you know what I mean? Like, maybe bring out the big guns today. Like, can we not let the 19-year-old intern have a go at the socials today? Like, it just felt like they were not taking Caerphilly seriously.
It would have been the equivalent of David Cameron in 2014 doing the Harlem Shake or planking. It's not ridiculous. Like,
mate, I would love a bit of Ice Bucket Challenge. I would love a bit of that right now.
Hi, I'm David, and I'd like to nominate George Osborne for the Ice Bucket Challenge.
They would have come up with ideas to post, and that was, this is our election day idea. This is our biggie. It's leading up to this.
Yeah, this is the big guns. Let's go out with this. I think this is a conversation possibly for another pod, but like, I understand the need to use socials to engage and to break through with younger voters and everything. And I'm sure that they're looking there. There's such a surge of younger voters going to Plaid. So I'm sure that they're thinking, right, how do we get them? But I mean, it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked.
Yeah, and that is who they're going for, isn't it? That's that they're going for that left of centre youth vote. But as you say, Will, demonstrate that you can do something to support young people, like fly that flag.
Well, I know that if I was a young person and I had a school which had been really, really underfunded, I couldn't afford to buy a house, and I had very limited prospects going forward, no matter how hard I worked, I would be really, really pleased that they described their candidate as a diva. I think that I'd have done, well, I feel seen. Get me.
It was essentially going pop-off queen. That is essentially what they said on the day of election.
Yes.
And it was giving the ass queen. But, you know, a glossy social media campaign with millions of pounds thrown behind it did not work for Kamala Harris. Calling Richard Tunnicliffe a diva is not going to work for Welsh Labour. And what I thought was really interesting in the headlines this morning as well, I mean, so much focus on what a kick in the teeth this is for Labour, but so many of the headlines introducing Plaid to maybe readers UK-wide who don't know who they are was all giving it Welsh Party who want Welsh independence, Welsh Party who want Welsh independence. And I wonder how much that is pissing off the Rhena Corner, etc., because they are not distancing themselves from it at the moment, but it's probably not the messaging they want going into May.
I was thinking exactly the same thing, because I was talking to the Rhena Corn before he was saddled and left the building, I don't really. We're not going to cut this. He was seeing this, and understandably so, as a ringing endorsement of Plaid Cymru. I actually think that more people vote for the SNP in Scotland than want Scottish independence. And the SNP are so much more vocal in their support for Indy than Plaid Cymru have ever been. So I don't think Plaid's ultimate desire for an independent Wales necessarily hinders a lot of people voting for them. I think it hinders some people voting for them, but I do wonder if those people would ever vote for them anyway. UK media having a pop at a Welsh Plaid Cymru leader. Well, there's not going to be a non-Welsh Plaid Cymru leader, is there? But a Plaid Cymru
Warren
leader.
Gatland.
We're going to go with something. One final try to win us back.
Let's do a whistle. 14th time.
I actually think, because the scrutiny of Plaid is so bad from UK, like the interviews where they couldn't even say his name, where they didn't understand any Welsh issues. I actually think them having a go at him actually just solidifies him as a kind of spokesperson for Wales, so I don't actually think it's going to hurt them.
Yeah, I suppose that's one of the issues that Welsh Labour have had, isn't it? Really trying to identify themselves as we are the Welsh bloc. And that's obviously what a lot of people within Labour are now trying to do, isn't it? Like reject Starmerism, we need to go full Morganism, that kind of thing.
I thought you were talking about yourself.
Yeah. I mean, like, me
yeah.
and Elinid are... She's in the next room. So.
She sat next to you giving you notes, actually. It actually wasn't that bad.
It was a good night for us, and 2 sugars. Great.
Shall we move on and talk about reform? Let's talk about reform. So, Clear Power, Welsh Dave, the amount, like, not him, but other people in reform, they walked into that count like they were the big swinging dicks. Nigel Farage, you couldn't move for seeing Nigel Farage around Caerphilly today. Didn't see him much after the polls closed. They poured everything into this election. Resources, money, people. They could not, I think, in terms of the amount they put into it, have done more. I think they will be absolutely devastated to not have won that, because I was a little, I mean, there was a part of me that was a bit annoyed they didn't win it, because I actually drafted the newsletter as though they were going to win it, and then I did a Boris Johnson, and I just kind of hedged.
Can I get that newsletter as well, please? I'd like to.
I've sent it to Clear Power.
Yeah. Not like just to one person. Oh, gross! It's like you've Wagatha Christie'd him.
Who thought you'd be the Colleen in that duo? You were the Colleen and he was the Rebecca Vardy. Bloody hell!
But because I think Reform had big plans. They'd have had 2 Senedd members. They'd have been one short of being able to form a group in the Senedd, which would have given their leader, who would have been Clear, a £15,000 pay bump. They had big plans. They had big plans. This was a foundation going forward, and it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. And I think one thing I wanted tell you about was I actually did a graph of how the votes split between left and right, and actually
I saw that on your newsletter. I really liked that image, actually. That was really satisfying, just to like visually see, like you say, the literal split between left and right.
It took me so long to make it.
It's excellent. I will say it was worth it. It really helped me visualise the split. So thank you for the effort.
Oh, thank you. So 61% of people voted for a left or centrist party, and 39% of people voted UKIP, Tory, or Reform. Vast majority were Reform. And I think what this shows is we've talked before about when we talked about the Tories, about Wales having a left of centre identity. There's people who are small c conservative, there are people who are right wing, but overall Wales is further to the left than England is. And if you are going to just go after that right side, not only are you trying to appeal to a smaller amount of voters, you're also trying to appeal to a more disengaged group of voters. And I think Reform are going to have to seriously think about this, because they banked on getting those voters out. And it's much easier to get voters out in a by-election where you can put everyone in one place than Wales-wide. And I think the other issue is immigration. Now, they went really hard on immigration. And the problem is, when you go really hard at an issue like that, some people love it. Some people it resonates. Some people go, yeah, stop the boats. But there's a lot of people who go, I've read a history book. I know where we go when we other people. I know where we go when we can't start treating other human beings as our enemies based solely upon where they come from and what they look like. And I think that rallied people against them in a major, major way.
Would the same be true for Plaid Cymru, though, in terms of the by-election effort, in that they can go hammer and tong at Caerphilly and throw everything at it, but it's a different conversation when you've got to fight a whole country worth of elections in one day? And that, you know, when you look at the graphic that you put together, the split between left and right, whilst the split between the left, obviously more had voted left of centre, but on the right of centre, that right of centre block is just Reform. Okay, there's that sliver of the Tories on the top, but the left, whilst Plaid are obviously the biggest one, there's more split. Whereas Reform are dominating half of that graph. So, you know, I would be cautious of considering this too much of a failure for Reform, because also we're sat here talking about them, and not to give Reform their flowers, which is a sentence I hated saying at this time of the morning, but they're a big name in this conversation. And yes, they didn't win, but we're here told they were the threat. Labour weren't the threat, Reform were.
Yeah, and a huge vote share. Huge amounts of people had a huge swing into that as well. I mean, they are the second biggest party. It was close. On another night, it could have been one of those ones where 50 votes were in it, and then you start looking at the other parties, going, "Well, why didn't you stand down?" That kind of thing. You know, it was a decent majority that Whittle got, but Reform did do very well. But as you say, Will, they will be really annoyed. Like the amount of UK media op-eds about like look at the room above Clear Powell's office with all this like US style numbers, and it's just like, okay, sure, but I mean it hasn't really. I was really surprised when I woke up. I really thought Reform would win it. I think all the bookies, like the odds on the day yesterday, were really, really strong in favour of Reform. They obviously sent down Richard Tice, they sent down Lee Anderson. They're really annoyed because they've only just learned how to pronounce his name, and now they can forget him again. But as you say, like, he was going to be the Welsh leader. What does that do now? Are they going to have to give it to Laura Ann Jones? Is she going to have to be Welsh leader, or are they just going to choose someone else in the run-up to May? Is it going to be clear again? Is he going to stand again? Where is he going to stand? Because, like, in terms of name recognition, I know he's a little been tarnished by this Gills stuff, and he said that people have been very attacking him and attacking his property and things. But he is a name within the Reform. He got 13,000 votes, pretty much, right? So I think he will run again. He is Reform's biggest guy in Wales, isn't he?
On what Mel said, I think you're absolutely right. I still would not be surprised if Reform were the biggest party come next year. I think although the right is smaller, it's much less congested. Like, it's Reform. That's all that's happening on that right-hand side of politics. Also, when it's a more proportional system, I think that the left's votes will spread out more. because a lot of people who would have voted Green, who would have voted Labour, went Plaid to stop reform. They might not do that under a proportional system, and that could cause some real issues for parties on the left. In terms of what this means for in reform, I actually think there's going to be some serious discord between people within the party, because ultimately, especially the defectors, the Laura Ann Jones of this world, I don't mean to be rude, but most of the people who are doing that, it's not a values-based decision. It is a personal advancements-based decision. They look at reform and they see these guys are winning. These guys are the best vehicle for my future success. And that's great when you look successful. But the second someone is perceived as not been successful, they turn pretty quick. And Claire Powell, we talked earlier about how that group around him, Matthew McKinnon, and some of the reform councillors in Torvine, there is some pretty big... I mean, I had several grassroots reform members text me saying he got what he deserved here. Hubris. It was arrogance.
Wow.
And and the knives are out already. More than in every party, this is the case, but particularly so in reform and actually in the Tories. Success is the great legitimizer. Like, the amount of Tory MPs who really didn't like Boris deep down, but were like, oh, he's really successful. If Claire Powell says that he is going to be at the top of another list at the expense of someone else, there's going to be a lot of anger there, and there's going to be a lot of frustration. You'll be like, well, you had your chance. We threw everything at that, and you didn't manage it. So there's going to be a lot of serious discord. Bearing in mind, a lot of these people could already have a fight in an empty house.
It has made me wonder how much of this is about Llŷn himself as well, and this is just purely me thinking aloud here. I don't know, but you know, a lot of the interviews and stuff that you put out on your socials, Will, you know, people saying, I'm voting for Nigel, and the interviewer going, he's not standing. You know, people in Caerphilly didn't necessarily know who Llŷn was, which, you know, it's not for lack of their effort, in all fairness. The clips that went out from the BBC debate I think the one viral clip that came out of that BBC debate with the woman saying, my sons who have always lived in Caerphilly feel unsafe here because of you. Llyr's reaction, and I'm saying this as somebody with a resting bitch face as well, Llyr's reaction looked like a petulant child. You know, and the problem is also he looked young. I don't know how young he is. I feel like he's my age. I don't know. But he looked like a spoiled child who had been slapped. He rolling his eyes in the face of a woman who was saying, you make my children feel unsafe. That is inherently unlikable. And I just wonder if his personality has played a part in this.
I think you're right. I mean, once it became clear that they weren't going to win, Reform wouldn't do interviews. I went over and spoke to their comms person, who, to be fair to them, is very polite to me, considering I message them about 5 times a day.
It's their job, though, Will.
It is their job. But I'm the first to admit I'm also fairly unlikable sometimes. But he said, no, we're not doing interviews. I mean, I did then watch Claire Powell do some interviews with other journalists. I think we're not doing interviews with you little shit. But he also, what I thought was really telling is, so Lindsay Whittle did that really good acceptance speech. Now, obviously, it's quite easy to be gracious when you win. But he also, the first thing he said after that thing of, I'm not used to doing this first, was pay tribute to Heaven David. Really, in like quite some detail. And I thought it was the right thing to do, but it was also classy. And but Claire Powell, Tunnicliffe, the Labour candidate, gave a speech. He must have been really disappointed. He must be exhausted. He's had a tough campaign. Claire Powell didn't say anything. He walked off the stage, surrounded by journalists who were like sticking microphones under him, but he didn't stand up and give a speech. And I thought that was really, really telling. So he'll dodge scrutiny, and he won't. And I think those little things are fundamental to our democracy. I think one of the most important things in our democracy is that when you lose, you say, well done, congratulations. And that peaceful movement of power is fundamental to what we are. And I think it was petulant. And I think you called it right, Mel. Like that idea of him just been like, how dare you? How can you question me on this? Who are you? And the question is like, no, who are you? You're standing in front of people making some pretty bold claims about what your party are going to do and the problems you're going to fix. You need to be able to stand up to some decent questioning.
You're completely right in that mark of somebody's character is how they react in the face of defeat. And it always, like, you know, in a relationship, you need some kind of conflict to know who that person actually is. How they react to you in an argument is actually who they are. And, you know, it's easy to be a good winner and a gracious winner. It's not so easy to be a gracious loser. And he has shown that petulance, and I don't know if that is a vote winner, because the people that they're going for are, you know, that white van man, salt of the earth, I'm just a good guy who's I'm a hard worker and I just want good things for me and my family. Seeing a spoiled brat on stage, that's not a vote winner.
Yeah, is that working hard? Is that grafting? Or is that, you know, bussing the reform lot in from England to sort of prop you up? Like the social videos with Richard Tyson, Lee Anderson around him, just looking like sort of parents talking to a head teacher. Like they really hit those. And then bringing Nigel in, as you say, people are voting for Nigel, and I think that's why I was surprised by the result, because I thought there would be this Boris bump like there was in 2019, like there was with the sort of the Brexit vote, of people going, well, we're voting for Nigel. I think what Reform are going to find in, you know, with lots of differences in terms of the system and stuff, but they don't have enough Nigels. They don't have 16 Nigels to sit in every single constituency. So who are they going to get? Because Clear was their big guy. He was the best one. So who are they looking at now unless they get defections, which obviously then comes, unless, like, you know, we talk about potentially Andrew R.T. Davis joining them and things like that, unless they get big guns who are then tarred with, you know, the establishment kind of tarred with that brush, who are they getting? And because they don't want to do interviews, he showed who he was at the debate. Anytime there is levels of scrutiny, that's when stuff kind of comes from it. So what they want is just, you know, like a Vegas residency for lots of Nigel Farages across every single constituency.
I also think they don't want another Farage. I don't think they would want someone else who is too good. And I think that's why Clear Power was pushed so hard. Is because
that's so damning.
But it's true. It is true. I mean, it's rough. And he's having a rough morning, Will. Give him a minute.
I actually think, as a performer, Clear Powell is one of their better ones. I think
he's a great dancer, Mel. He's a great dancer as a performer.
He's the Billy Elliot.
Robin, are you?
That's the loudest wee everyone's ever had.
Not weeing. I made a little flask of coffee. I'm glad that you. I'm in my little outdoor office thing, which is fucking freezing. But I'm glad that you addressed it. I thought I was being really subtle. I've got noise cancelling headphones on, but I'm really glad that it's been addressed, so we just don't have a rogue horse piss, like an early morning piss. Oh yeah, Robin's in his mid-30s. He goes for a really big one when he wakes up now.
Yeah. It was so loud.
I know.
Will tried to carry on over it, and you couldn't hear him. Yeah, well, have you finished your piss now?
There we go. We can put... Producer Dale, can you put a little flash noise in, please? Thank you.
William Hayward, please carry on.
I think Clear Powell is very close to Nigel Farage. They get on very well personally. I know that they are... that there's a very close working relationship there. And I think because of that level of trust, I think Farage doesn't... Clear Power was never going to be a centre of power apart from Farage. It was just not going to happen. Reform is a dictatorship. Ultimately, it is the rule of one man. We can't pretend this is a democratic party. Like, it basically, what Nigel says goes.
It's not a party, where it's a company.
It's a business.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what you tend not to find, but dictatorial figures are very accepting of other senior figures. It's just not what they do, unless they know that they've got them.
Yeah, it is weirdly, Nigel Farage is their biggest strength and their Achilles heel, because without Farage, they are nothing. What I'm trying to say, people can't vote for Farage in every seat. It's like Robin said, they don't have Farages all over Wales. They don't have that. But like you said, neither do they want that, because Farage couldn't cope with that. So they've got a strategy to work out very, very quickly now, because like you say, they have thrown everything at Caerphilly, everything, and it hasn't worked. I don't think this is a failure for them by any means, but they haven't won, and it's going to be harder to fight that across the whole country in May. But just, sorry if I'm like harping back to Plaid just slightly, but I think it's relevant here, is that one of my assumptions for Plaid was that they were going to fortify their vote in their heartlands, but they were not actually going to gain any new voters. And this has proven that theory wrong on this occasion. But I don't think that removes this 2-horse race that we're going into next year at all.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's this race shows the death of Welsh Labour in its current form, and I suppose where is that vote going? And I think it's, as you say, it's going to go into those two parties there. It was interesting hearing. I saw one of the interviews that Clear did, sadly not with you, Will, afterwards, where he was basically saying, we can be proud of what we've done, and we will still be the governing party in May. And this was like a campaigning building election. This was getting our people used to our campaigning system. We're a grassroots campaigning party now. Like picturing himself as like the Jeremy Corbyn of Welsh politics. Like we are the grassroots campaigning party. So I think they'll be, for lack of a better phrase, butthurt by this, won't they? They're going to be absolutely like revolted by this result. But they will get seats. They will get a big vote share in May, and they will like. I was interested that Clear was like, we're going to be the biggest party, like that, and obviously that's like his. I didn't, that could just be the sort of the petulance, like, no, we're gonna win, we're gonna win. I don't know.
They could, if they've got anything about them, Uno reverse the fuck out of Plaid now and go, look, Plaid are winning. Sure. You want to stop Plaid, you need to vote reform. And I think that's not a bad tactic for them.
Yeah, for sure.
Because there are people who are turned off by Plaid. There are people who have felt like Plaid do not see them. It's not a version of Wales that they subscribe to. They're unionists. They don't enjoy the Welsh language element of our culture. Like there will be people who really are not turned on by Plaid, and this could be the help reform need to turn those voters to them. Don't know. I
suppose that thing about is getting those voters out, isn't it? I mean, like the voter turnout was high. That's worth. We haven't mentioned that yet, right? Biggest by-election turnout in Senedd history.
It's the biggest ever by-election turnout for Welsh Senedd. It's also considerably higher than it was in Caerphilly in 2021, but also higher than the Welsh average. And what you tend to find is by-elections are lower.
Yeah.
So this one was 50.4%, which still half people didn't vote. But in 2021, it was 44%. I think part of that is we talk about Farage. Like Farage is incredibly recognisable, and a lot of people really like Farage. But the people who no one is apathetic to Farage.
Yeah, sure.
The problem is when you've got someone who no one is apathetic to. People who like him, but he gives you quite a hard ceiling, which you're going to butt up against. And that is, are we seeing it? Are we seeing like kind of that high 30s%? And actually that is fine for them in a general election because it's first past the post. That won't allow them to form a government in Wales, especially because, my God, they have eaten alive the Conservatives. Conservatives are technically the opposition in Wales. Haven't even mentioned them yet, have we?
No, and we won't.
No. End of Conservative chat.
We'll bleep them out.
Not to go in. The who? Did they? I mean, were they there? Did they turn up in any great numbers? Did they give a shit?
David T.C. Davis had a conversation with me. He said, "I think we're almost friends, Will."
Oh well, that's a shame.
No, to be fair, and then he wrote back and was like, "No, I think we could be friends." And part of me was like, "Well, you come on, you." Running low, mate. Like, turns out bacon can be choosers.
Is that how he makes
also,
friends?
Will, you also had bigger fish to fry last night. Do you know what I mean? Him going like, I think maybe we could be BFFs if, like, if you just kind of answered, if we went for coffee once a week, maybe we could. We're busy, TC.
You know what? We were chatting, and then we just started talking about surfing. It's so surreal conversation to David T.C. Davis.
It's like he's trying to...
Was he wearing a body cam?
I don't know. He was too tall. I couldn't see.
It's like he's trying to angle to get into your MySpace top 8. What a baffling sort of...
Well, that was a great throwback.
Yeah,
Love
very,
that
very
throwback. What a time. What a savage time. No wonder why we're all mentally ill now. There we
Well,
go.
can I mention one thing about Clear? In that,
Yes.
we talk about it being like the party of Nigel. He had links, like one of the lines he was pumping was he had links to that community. His, like a family member working in the NHS, him living in Caerphilly, him having links to that community, which is, I imagine, a reason of why he was chosen. It didn't work, because the other side of the argument clearly turned a lot of people off, or their side of the argument isn't enough. I know that's that nice bar chart that took you 17 hours. Well, the left and right of Welsh politics. That's obviously going to be not as clear in the Senedd election in terms of it's by elections. It can really like people were voting tactically in this, whereas in May that won't be the case. So I don't think this result can be completely replicated ahead of May. But I'm just really interested to see the candidates that Reform choose. I'm really, really interested to see who they choose across Wales.
I think it will be fascinating. I think it'll be really, really fascinating. I think, and also I think it will be fascinating the order that those candidates are put.
Sure.
And I think that'll be something that people discuss a lot. I do, on that thing you said about tactical voting. I know we've talked for quite a while now, but I think on that idea of tactical voting, what I think is quite interesting is if say Reform had beaten Plaid here, I think there would have been a real conversation about, does the left in Wales need to have some kind of strategy, alliance, tactics in order, if you see Reform as a genuine threat to Welsh democracy, do you need to have some kind of alliance? And the problem is, under the system that Labour have introduced, by the way, this system is going to destroy Labour, okay? I say in the newsletter, they're not just turkeys voting for Christmas, they've sharpened the axe. Like, it's going to be really bad for them. But there is no way to really vote tactically in it, because it all depends, especially as this is the first time we're using it. You've got no benchmarks for what will happen. And if you were to say, Plaid are the most likely party to stop Reform, even though I'm a Green voter, I'm going to vote for Plaid. What actually that might do is give Plaid extra votes, which won't actually give them an extra seat, but it will cost the Greens a seat, the 6th place on the list, and that might let Reform in. And that's because of what Mel was saying about that much less congested right of politics. So the right vote smaller won't be split, whereas on the left it could be. And that's why tactical voting is almost impossible. The only way you can really do it is if the Greens and Plaid, for instance, were to say, all right, Greens are only going to stand in these seats, Plaid are only going to stand in these seats, which means that their voters are likely to maybe go there. There's just no reason for Plaid to do that, because Plaid are on to win everywhere. So, and there's no other parties which I think are similar enough to have this kind of alliance. So I just don't see how there can actually be proper tactical voting. Effective tactical voting. I mean, people can vote tactically, but they'd be rubbish tactics.
This will be the last time. Yeah, this by-election was the last time to do that.
I think what we do need to talk about with Plaid, because obviously they won tonight, and they didn't just sneak it; they smashed it. And I think what we forget is when Verena Corn took over 3 years ago now, the party were in a really, really bad state. They'd done really poorly in the Senedd election. They'd had some serious scandals within the party. There was huge division. And they were just, independence was really all they were talking about. He has come in and he has fundamentally changed the perception of that party. And I think you can make the argument that, forces beyond his control in UK politics have been favourable, but he can only work in the situation he is. And he's done a really good job, and they're feeling positive, and they are so poorly resourced compared to especially like Labour, Reform, and even the Tories. And you got to say well done to them, because people are buying what they're selling.
Yeah, you're so right that, if you consider actually what they are working with, they have done so well with not the political machine that the likes of Labour and Conservatives have got. They don't have that kind of political machine, the resources, like you say. Also, up until now, they haven't had that mainstream appeal at all. They were a fringe party. They were almost a protest party, and I understand some people would argue that they still are, but I think last night it's a chapter in their book. Do you know what I mean? It's a big changing night, and I think the Unicorn has played a big part in that, because he has made them appealing in the mainstream, I think, and he's a good orator. He's made them a serious party. I think I've said this before, but this feels like the first time Plaid are taking themselves very seriously as a government forming party, and I wonder if they can keep this momentum up now, basically.
I completely agree with what you're saying about them seeming like a mainstream party, but with that mainstream attention, from their conference, like Sky News being there, and Five Live, with that level of attention comes scrutiny, and other people, as we've talked about with Reform, some people can't handle that. It seems like they can. They've had this time in the wings that they seem to be ready to be able to do it. But he's a media guy. He's a good orator. He knows how to play that game. But as you say, Will, political forces have changed over the last few years. So it makes sense for them to, and I suppose Welsh Labour moving away from that Drakeford left of centre model. Yeah. I think they have filled that gap. They have plunged the green water into that pool. Don't know why I've said that. It's very early. It's they did very, very well. I wasn't fully aware of the resources comparison between Welsh Labour and obviously you hear Reform pumping money in. I think it was also interesting. I was on X brackets, formerly Twitter, close brackets, a lot over the last couple of days, and on there it looked like Reform were going to do very, very well. Obviously, that's part of the model, I think, of right of centre parties, and especially how that platform works. But it's the amount of people. I think sometimes it's important to remember that that's not real life, and a lot. Plaid had a lot of people coming out. I don't want to call them shy Plaid voters, because I don't know if that's ever been said before. But the real life impact of it is clear with the amount of people that turned out, and I think it's worthy of note that the sheer amount of pro-reform voices on social media clearly hasn't worked this time.
I have questions about Plaid's policy offering well beyond independence. I'm there. Some of the stuff they've said about reforming stuff, I think, has been good in that they've put forward actual plans. I worry with some of them that it might fall into the category of well-branded tweaking, and I think well-branded tweaking is not what Wales needs. Wales needs fundamental change. I keep going to say reform.
I know. I literally was about to say it. I was like, stop myself. It's almost like it's good branding that they've got,
good
isn't
name for
it?
a party.
Definitely. Who doesn't want reform as a word? Doesn't have a negative connotation. Like, reforms are very rarely seen as a bad thing. They're, like, changes are and adjustments, but reform is usually
adjustment is the worst name for a party.
Just a little adjustment.
I'm from Tweak UK.
Sounds like a sex thing, Will.
So, guys, what would you say is your key takeaway from tonight? Individually, when you saw the results, saw everything come in, what's the thing you've taken from it?
The Welsh Labour death that has come from last night. To be honest, I think this is the dark night in Welsh Labour's history, and one that I think they're going to really struggle to bounce back up. Not only was this a failure, they paled into insignificance last night, which I think is incredibly difficult for them to come back from. And I think has just kind of emphasised how much of a two-horse race May is going to be.
I think for me, it's how shocked I was when I saw the result. I think from spending a lot of time online, I think I really thought this was going to go one way. And I think for me, it's that juxtaposition between that online and offline world. Obviously, this is hyper-focused. We won't get the same media attention from the UK-wide stuff on Senedd, on the Senedd May elections, but very, very interesting to see that sort of that real life versus online conflict.
I think for me, the biggest takeaway is reform are beatable, and reform are beatable by not trying to agree with reform. Reform are beatable by directly contesting the claims they are making and painting, not just saying they're bad, but saying here is a different vision. And I think there's a lesson there, not just in Wales. I think there's a lesson there for the man in 10 Downing Street. And I think that, and actually a message of hope and opposition to quite divisive policies, might actually resonate with quite a lot of people.
I wonder if Plaid are thinking that, as you said earlier, Will, like, you know, running on this platform for change, but are they going to do a Starmer when they're in office and then just tweak a little bit, and then it feels like business as normal? Starmer ran on where we will change things, and then it's just been business as normal. So I suppose from them, if they are going to be the governing party in May, they've got to, you know, promising radical stuff and then not delivering. That could then really open the doors for reform in following years, couldn't it?
The most important thing for Plaid isn't that they win, it's that they govern successfully if they do win. Guys, this has been the most fun I've had at 6 a.m. I've now got to go and finish my Guardian piece. And I challenge you to a race, producer Daryl. Can you get this out before I write some words?
We shall see.
I mean, given how tired you are and how you finished that sentence, I think Daryl's going to have this in the bag. I challenge you before I write some words. Thank you for being here, Will. I know you've done a long old stint, and I appreciate you.
We will have a broader chat about this again, I'm sure, because obviously this is like immediate reaction, but we're going to have all of the after chat, after reaction to kind of unpack next week, which I cannot wait for.
Thanks very much. I've been Will Hayward.
I've been Mel Owen.
And I've been Robin Morgan.
Bye.
Tara.